And good evening, producer Susan. How you doing tonight?
Good evening, Jersey Joe. How are you? Happy
Good.
Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you. Did you get any Valentine's Day cards or presents or anything?
Not yet.
Not yet. But the night is young, huh? All right. You getting any snow out there? We got 60-some degree weather here. We're still waiting for our first
Not
snowfall.
yet. It was a beautiful day, and I heard rumor it's going to hit 60 tomorrow.
Yeah, same here. It's like spring. All right. All right. You ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
I'm wondering if I have enough to fill the 30 minutes. What do you think?
I'm guessing you probably have enough to fill 60 minutes.
All right. For first-time listeners, it's the situation with Jerzee Joe. It's news and perspective you won't hear on TV. You're going to hear some news stories, I guarantee, that you haven't heard on the evening news. And you'll hear some perspective on stories that you have heard, but maybe you only heard one side of the story. So here we go. We're going to start off with a quote of the day by one of our better-known senators on the importance of having a father in the home. And the reason I want to lead with that quote is I want to tell you about a very, very sad story about a young man who was killed in Denver last week. He was involved in a crime and he wound up dead. And I'm willing to bet that young man didn't have a father living in the house with him. In our new segment, the stupidest thing I've heard all week, I'll let you know what an MSNBC commentator said about the Michigan State University shooting on Monday. I'm sure you've heard about that.
Yeah, I actually I have colleagues that work there, very close colleagues who are very close to the situation, and
it's a terrible, sad, tragic situation. And we'll talk a little bit about after I tell you about this, what this stupid commentator said. We'll talk a little bit about the background and the suspect. We'll tell you why a New Hampshire school district has decided to discontinue use of urinals in all school buildings. Your college hasn't discontinued urinals in the men's room, have they?
Nope.
Well, give it time; it may happen.
But I will say we also have an abundance of, what is the word am I looking for?
Transgender.
Well, it's not meant. It's they could be for family restrooms. It could be
okay.
for
Right.
any sort of privacy you want. We have a variety of those restrooms available for people who don't want to share a public restroom.
Well, good. And as long as we're talking about colleges, I'll tell you about a proposal by Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. They're going to try to legislate and prevent college students from making stupid decisions through legislation. So how do you think that's going to turn out?
Yeah.
In our Health Minute, we'll tell you about how programs designed to provide taxpayer-funded universal health care to all residents are collapsing in countries around the world. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, well, single-payer universal health care, that's all we need. That'll fix all of our problems. I want to tell you about the ugly side of universal health care and what's happening to people who are living under that, and why a lot of those people leave their countries where health care is free to come to places like the United States to pay for it. We'll tell you about a European power company that's been using diesel generators to power their wind turbines. That makes a lot of sense, right? Burn diesel fuel to keep your wind.
I feel like that's a bit of an oxymoron.
We have a topic from last week that we never got to. Last week, the ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, released Volume 2 of their study about how many guns are stolen and how many are recovered and where they're recovered. We ran out of time, but we'll try to get to that this week. And our taxpayer relief shot comes from East Hartford, Connecticut, where a store clerk shot and killed one of two armed robbers after being shot and wounded himself. Ever been to Hartford?
I was born in Hartford.
You were born in Hartford. Oh, my goodness. Oh, this is close to home then. All right. So our quote of the day, you may know who said this, but it's about the importance of fathers. And I'll read the quote first without telling you who it was. And as you listen to this, see if you can think of the senator who made this quote. He gave it on Father's Day. And here's the quote. We know the statistics that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. They are more likely to have behavioral problems or run away from home or become teenage parents themselves. and the foundations of our community are weaker because of it. Do you remember who said that?
You said it was a senator, former senator,
Former senator.
not a current. Was that Barack Obama?
Senator Barack Obama on Father's Day, 2008. Now, why is that relevant to my first story? And while this could have been a taxpayer relief shot story, it is too tragic. And I'm going to play the actual news clip. A young man in Denver last week steals a guy's car. But it's one of these cars like mine where you can sign up for the Where's My Car locator service. You know, the car's got the GPS. So the guy's car gets stolen. He looks on his phone. He sees where his car is. It's not too far away. He has a buddy drive him over there. So he goes over with his spare key. He's going to take his car back. But he's also smart enough to know that whoever this guy is a crook and he might need it. So he takes his own gun. When he gets there, he finds the crook sitting in his car. And so his buddy pulls up, blocks the car, and he gets out, starts yelling, "Get out of my car." The thief gets out of the car and starts shooting at him. And he shoots back and kills the thief. Now, normally that would have been a pretty good taxpayer relief shot story, right? Would that have been a good taxpayer relief shot story, right?
It certainly sounds like it's justified.
Sure, good guy with gun kills thug with gun. But here's what makes it tragic, and here's how it ties into the story.
Police say a 12-year-old boy dead tonight after auto theft escalates.
Let me back that up. The first words are very important.
Denver police say a 12-year-old boy dead tonight after auto theft escalates. Police say it started Sunday. The vehicle owner reported the theft from the 8300 block of East Northfield Boulevard and was tracking his stolen vehicle. He found it stopped near West 12th and North Decatur Street. Police say gunfire was exchanged when that car owner approached, and then the boy inside that car drove away. Officers were able to find him. He had been shot. He went to the hospital, but later died. He was 12 years old.
Wow.
The auto theft victim who shot that kid has been in contact with police, has not yet been arrested. This investigation is ongoing. Police say other people did run from that stolen vehicle.
Wow, 12 years old.
12 years old. Now, so you're 12 years old, you're stealing cars and you're carrying a loaded gun and you decide to get into a gunfight with the car's owner.
Yeah.
What do you think the odds are that there was a father living in the same house with that boy?
He definitely, I feel like, may have been lacking a significant role model in his life.
Yeah, they had another story where they interviewed the boy's mother, but the only quote was from the mother. There was no interview with the boy's father. So now again, this is speculation. I do not know for an absolute certainty that there was no father in this boy's life. But I'm willing to give anybody 10-1 odds that wants to bet me $100 that there was no father living in that house with the boy, because clearly what father would, what father would raise a kid so he's out at night with a gun stealing cars? I just don't see how that could possibly happen. Any thoughts on 12-year-old kids with guns?
Yeah, there's something not right there with that situation.
Right. And by the way, and it's not.
And not that it excuses a 22-year-old boy either, but that young of age, there's something not right there.
Yeah, and it's just absolutely tragic that, kids as young as 12 are, well, you heard, I think 2 weeks ago, the 6-year-old in Virginia brought a gun to school and shot the teacher in the hand, right?
Yeah. And there was, from what I understand, many warning signs about that situation too.
Right. So it's just, and in that case, by the way, that was just a stupid parent who left a loaded gun accessible to a 6-year-old kid. In the case of the 12-year-old, I'm sure maybe the mother didn't even know the kid had the gun, but still, I guarantee you, I've never met a father, who would not provide supervision over a 12-year-old, that he'd be out stealing cars at night.
Well, going back to the Virginia shooting, though, I think there's many other fails that happened in that story with school administration and warning signs.
Yes, the kid there are all sorts of problems. The school failed, the mother failed. But I think that, by the way, the mother was criminally negligent. Mm. All right, let's go on to Michigan. So I'm sure everybody's heard on Monday, there was a shooting in Michigan, the campus, Michigan State. A shooter came on campus, shot, I think, 6 or 7 students. I think 3 are dead. Others are in critical condition. He eventually shot himself, committed suicide. But it turns out that he was a convicted felon who was not legally allowed to purchase or own a handgun. He was a black man, convicted felon, was not legally allowed to own or possess a handgun. So here's what, you know who Joe Scarborough is on MSNBC?
I've heard the name.
Okay, here's what Joe Scarborough said about the shooting. And he's going, and here's the stupidest thing I've had all week. Well, we've already asked this question. Now you heard about the Michigan shooting that happened on Monday. Did you hear about the mass shooting on Saturday and the one on Sunday?
No.
Did you hear about the 7 we had the week before?
No.
How about the 7 the week before that?
No.
Well, then let me know if you think this is stupid. Here was this quote this morning. We have more than one mass shooting in this country every day. Again, we have more than one mass shooting in this country every day. And again, we've talked about this before. Mass shooting, 4 more killed by a single shooter at random in a public place. No, Joe Scarborough, we don't have more than one mass shooting in this country every day. This is the perspective. When I talk about the show open perspective, if you don't know any better, you'll believe idiots like Joe Scarborough, who said we have more than one mass shooting in this country every day. No, we don't. I think this is the first one this week, and I think we had, if I'm not mistaken, only one in January. But this is the type of propaganda you'll hear.
And the situation, the horrible situation that happened last night at Michigan State is the true definition of a mass shooting. Yes,
that's the true definition of a mass shooting. Guy at random, starts shooting, public place. And by the way, here's a quote. The guy's name was, the shooter's name was Anthony Dwayne McCrae. McCrae previously arrested on gun-related charges in 2009 in Lansing, Michigan. He pleaded guilty, but never served time. Remember last week we talked about not serving time and the child rapist getting off with 6 months?
Yeah.
He was placed on probation in 2019, discharged in May from probation in 2021. Court records indicate he could not legally own or possess a weapon during the time of his own probation. So Scarborough, by the way, went into that rant about more than one mass shooting every day, that we need, as a prelude to, we need more, quote, common sense gun control laws. When I get to the ATF report, we're going to talk about how many hundreds of thousands of guns are stolen in this country every year. My question is, what new constitutional, quote, common sense gun law do you think would have precluded this convicted felon? Do you think he walked into a gun shop to buy that gun?
If I had to guess, he probably stole it from someone or bought it illegally.
Or bought it illegal. I cannot think of a single, quote, constitutional gun law that would have prevented this felon from gaining access to the gun he used. Because clearly he didn't buy it legally, because he would have never passed a background check. I'm sure it'll turn out it was a stolen gun. So I just don't know, when these idiot commentators talk about we need more gun control laws to stop things like this. My challenge to them is, go ahead, name me the constitutional law that would have prevented this guy from getting that gun. All right, if you want to move on to something a little bit lighter?
Yes, let's lighten the mood here.
All right. In Milford, New Hampshire, the school board has decided to ban the use of urinals in boys' bathrooms and locker rooms. Are you curious as to why they decided to do that?
I have a pretty good idea as to why.
Well, the school decided that all of its facilities should be gender neutral. But then they decided, since they would have biological females potentially using what is formerly the boys' bathrooms and boys' locker rooms, that they were concerned that any student who identified as a female who might decide to use what was formerly a boys' restroom or locker room should not have to be exposed to the sight of male genitalia. So therefore, the use of previously installed urinals in those bathrooms would be discontinued, and that all students could only use stalls with doors whenever they needed to urinate. The urinals in those schools will be blocked and decommissioned. So that's the road you go down when you say we're gender neutral and we have no gender. So what do you think of gender neutral, no more urinals? Because they might be offended. My thought is, if you're transgender and you say I identify as a male, then seeing male genitalia comes part and parcel with that decision. What's your thought?
And I don't know a whole lot about it, but it is my understanding that if somebody is transitioning, part of the psychological aspect of that before any surgery will be done is that you need to, first of all, I don't think it should be done on a child, period, but that's a whole nother conversation, that you need to integrate yourself wholly into your chosen sex for 1 full year. And I think integrating yourself into your chosen sex includes using restrooms that have urinals.
Yeah, and if you're going to see a guy with a penis in his hand, well, hey, that's what being a guy is all about. By the way, you probably wouldn't know this, but not every men's room has dividers between the urinals. So trust me, I've been in restrooms with urine. In fact, in some of the arenas, they actually just don't even have urinals. They actually have a trough.
Yeah, I was going to say in our stadium, we actually do have troughs in our stadium because it's old school. And then I think I actually sent you this football season. I sent you a photograph of what is it called? It's I forget the word they use, but it's basically a porta potty for like 12 men at one time, because it's essentially a trough system, but it's a urinal, porta potty urinal.
Yeah, it's just a 12-foot long trough, and you're there shoulder.
It's round. It's like octagon
right.
shape.
You're right. It's round. So you're not just left and right. You're looking it's like it's a circle. So you're looking across. You're there urinating into the. It's like one of those big hand washing things they have.
Yeah.
The circular. So you're there, and 8 feet on the other side, there's another guy, and you're looking at each other while you're both urinating. So.
Yeah. So listeners, next time you're out at a massive sporting event or fair or outdoor event where porta potties are present, look for these giant circular porta potties. That is basically a giant circular trough for men.
Right. Well, that's where we are, that we're all gender neutral now, but we don't want to offend anybody. So guys can't use urinals anymore. All right. So now we all know, that, by the way, if you're 18, you can vote, you can join the military, you can enter into legally binding contracts, and you get married without your parents' permission, right? You're an adult, right?
Yep.
And if you're going to college, shouldn't that indicate that you're reasonably intelligent if you decided I want to go on to a higher education?
Yes, as a matter of fact, many higher ed institutions, because many children or students are 17 when they enter college, colleges actually view the 17-year-olds as adults in the cases of FERPA and higher education issues.
Right. Yes. So clearly you're an adult and you can make adult decisions. Clearly voting is a big adult decision. Now, we've all heard stories about people who have borrowed $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year to go to some no-name college, and they study for 4 or 5 years, and they come out with a degree in something like gender studies or art history. Now, I don't want to denigrate art history. And if you want to go to work for the Smithsonian or the Museum of Art in New York City, yes, but you don't do it by going to Podunk University. I mean, if you want to go to work in a museum in their art department, you don't do it by going to Podunk University and squeaking by with a C- average and gender studies. So, and I think I've told the story that I used to go to a Starbucks on a regular basis. I got to know the manager. One day I said, "Hey, by the way, Frank, how many people here have college degrees?" And he said, of the 16 people that work here, 11 are college graduates. And this is what happens when you spend $60,000, $70,000 a year to go to a no-name college and get a degree that has no market value. Now, those are dumb decisions. But should the federal government be involved in preventing people from making stupid decisions? Is that the place for the federal government to protect people from themselves?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, so here's what they've done. They want the Secretary of Education to enact something called the gainful employment rule. And what they want to do is have a rule where the U.S. Department of Education would deny any sort of federal aid to any institution that offers a course of study where it is unlikely that the graduating student would gain gainful employment sufficient to pay for the debt incurred by acquiring that degree. In other words, if you spend $80,000 to get a degree in gender studies from ABC University in Podunk, Illinois, it's unlikely that you will ever get a job associated with that degree that will pay the debt you've incurred. I just think that is not the place of the federal government. Any thought?
Yeah, I think that the government needs to stick to minding their own business.
Maybe if you get enough stories like that, people, I think they need to, I think one of my other quotes about 5 or 6 weeks ago was, I think from Admiral Hyman Rickover, that said, we must learn from the mistakes of others because we won't live long enough to make them all ourselves. Well, I think the stories about people who have spent $80,000 to get worthless degrees from third-rate schools, those are mistakes that students have to learn. And again, I just think it is not the place of the federal government to try to outlaw stupidity, but that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think we also do, two things. One, you can get a valuable degree from a not name brand school.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can also make a very great career out of degrees, like you said, art history. And I think, but y'all need to have a plan. And if going to XYZ school is the only school you can afford, and you can make the most out of your career, most out of your degree, and the most out of the school you choose.
And you can, with the right professor, if you learn chemistry at Podunk University and they're using the same textbooks and same syllabus and, the same, then, whether what you learned about chemistry in Podunk U it will be just as valuable, if you learn chemistry at MIT. Now, MIT will probably, when push comes to shove, if there's competition, clearly the MIT grad is going to have an edge over Podunk U, but it doesn't mean what you learned about chemistry at Podunk U is any less valuable than what you learned about chemistry at MIT. Anyway, so let's talk about the failure of both failures that have occurred and failures that are occurring in terms of universal health care. The most glaring example is Venezuela, which, was one of the first countries to have, quote, free universal health care. And when I say free, nothing is free. It's who pays for it. In the case of all these countries, the taxpayers are paying for it. Case of Venezuela, do you know if you step on a rusty nail in Venezuela right now, you'll die? Do you know why you'll die?
Because you probably can't get into a hospital to get a tetanus shot.
Well, you can get into the hospital, but because they have no money, none of the hospitals have tetanus vaccines. I mean, they don't have the basic fundamental vaccines. Mm-hmm. So a doctor will see you. Yes, you have a tetanus infection, but we don't have any tetanus vaccine because our shelves are bare. They can't afford bandages, basic medicines, basic vaccines, antibiotics. They've had to stop all their surgeries. They can't get, you talk about, if you need a new hip, a new knee, new shoulder, they can't get the orthopedic implants. So if you're living in Venezuela and you got a bad nip, and first, they're not doing any surgeries except under the most extreme emergency, like gunshot or something, because they have no antibiotics to treat the wound. So that's why they're not even doing basic surgeries. Now we get to Britain, where people are waiting more than 8 months in Britain for basic care. Well, if you get a diagnosis of a cancer before you can start your chemotherapy, it's 8 months. You could be dead in 8 months from cancer. You have a bad hip, bad knee. Let's say you you wreck your knee, you're in a car accident or something, you need a new knee, you can barely walk. In the US, if that happened, you'd have a new knee in 3 weeks. I mean, okay, you're in a car accident, your knee's been destroyed, you need a new knee. 3 weeks later in the United States, you have a new knee. In the UK, for 8 months, you're going to be hobbling around. Let's see, I'm reading here. Volume claims. This article from Reason says, simply put, the national health system is collapsing. Physicians and nurses are leaving the profession at an unprecedented rate, and students are entering other fields. 7 million Britons, more than 1 in 10, are waiting for treatment. And while COVID certainly accelerated the decay of the NHS, it did not cause it. The system has been showing symptoms of an underlying problem for decades. Indeed, the NHS, National Health System, was destined to fail from its very inception. And this is not just true of the NHS, it is true of many of the world's most vaunted government-run healthcare systems. They have deep flaws built into their very design, and now they are showing signs of severe strain. And I'm quoting from this article in Reason, and if you want to read the whole thing, just Google reason.com. And I'm going all the way back. I want to try to get now to Canada, where people by the way, in Canada, in the town I live in, I think I've got 3 MRI machines within 20 miles of where I'm sitting. In like some of the provinces like Saskatchewan, they have 1 MRI machine for the entire province. And if you need an MRI, you know, let's say it's not an emergency situation, you weren't in a car wreck, but say that your doctor says, well, I want to get an MRI. You'll wait months, and when you finally get your MRI, it might be a 600-mile round trip to get your MRI. And let me ramble on here a little bit more. Okay. I'm going to try to find Canada here, and even Sweden. It's a long story. So there we go. Now people, Sweden and Scandinavia, right? Well, Sweden and the Scandinavian neighbors are often portrayed as paragons of progress and equality. Integral to that dream is universal access to healthcare. In theory, they are universal. No other systems are supposed to be necessary. Yet over the past 20 years, Sweden has seen a robust private market for healthcare grow alongside the public system. It's a clear sign that the country's public insurance system has failed to live up to the ideals. Parallel private markets for healthcare aren't uncommon in developed countries with national healthcare system. But given the amount the Swedes pay into the system, Sweden's growing private market might be surprising. Here's a quote. On average, Swedes pay more than half of their income in taxes. When the government takes such a big slice of residents' money, it better deliver great services. Yet Swedes are so desperate for better care, they're willing to tap into their scarce post-tax earnings to seek out private options. The number of Swedes with private insurance has been exploding. In 2001, just 1% of Swedish residents had private health insurance. Today, 7% do. Sweden's public healthcare system simply isn't able to provide for everyone. And it goes on and on. In Canada, by the way, people are coming. In Canada, where healthcare is absolutely 100% free, you have people driving over the border to come to U.S. For hip and knee replacements, cancer treatments, and all you have to do is Google the phrase Canadians coming to U.S. for medical care. And in fact, I'm going to do that right now. Let's see how many hits I get. Canadians traveling to U.S. for medical care. And I probably need to spell Canadians without an S in it, right? Canadian, there's an A after that. Canadians. All right. And I've only got 1,300,000 hits, so it's just really so just Google that and you'll see it. Now, it looks like once again we're running out of time. Mm-hmm. Surprise, surprise, right? And then Scotland, by the way, when they had a cold snap and the wind wasn't blowing, so the Scottish Power Authority was using diesel-powered generators to keep their wind turbines spinning during the cold spell. I won't go into the details, but you can just Google Scottish Power Authority diesel generators to turn wind turbines. It's just ironic that they're burning diesel fuel to keep their wind turbines spinning.
Why not just burn the diesel fuel?
Well, you would think so, right? But no, they wanted to keep them spinning. So, and by the way, and they didn't tell the residents that they were doing that. They tried to keep it a secret. Oh, look, our turbines are spinning. No, they're only spinning because they're being spun by diesel generators. All right. ATF study. We'll talk about this again in maybe next week. But here's the highlights. The ATF reported that 1.1 million guns were reported stolen from homes and vehicles from 2017 to 2021. That's 4 years. That's 250,000 guns per year. 1.1 in 4 years. That's, by the way, only reported. Not every stolen gun makes it into the ATF. If some of these little rural police departments, if you say my house was robbed and they stole 2 of my guns, I guarantee you that report is not going to make it to the ATF. The better estimate is that 500,000 guns are stolen every year, and that the inventory of stolen guns on the street of this country is in excess of $10 million. 10 million units. So there's 10 million stolen guns floating around out there. So, and if you're a crook, I think I mentioned this last week, the female reporter in Chicago was talking to the gangbangers, and she asked one of them who had a mask on, face mask, how tough is it to get a gun? And he told her $30 and 30 minutes. Do you want one? So when we talk about more gun control, keeping guns out of the hands of criminals, call me skeptical because, by the way, here's one more statistic. About 16,000 people are murdered by handguns in this country every year, according to the FBI annual crime report. We have 420 million guns estimated in this country. If you divide 16,000 gun murders by 420 million, you know what percentage you come up with?
Oh, I need a calculator to do that math.
Well, I already did it for you. The percentage is 0.003, 0.003 of 1%, 0.003 of the guns in this country were used to murder somebody last year. So the inverse of that number is 99.997%. Which means out of the 420 million guns in this country, 99.997% weren't used to murder anybody last year. Can you name of any other dangerous controlled device or substance that has a 99.997% effective safety record?
Not off the top of my head. Not
even vehicles. Vehicles don't even come close. All right. Since we're running tight on time, taxpayer relief shot, I'm going to skip. I'll just let the sheriff from Santa Rosa County explain what a taxpayer relief shot is. And here we go. If I can find my cursor.
If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save taxpayers money.
All right. And that was Sheriff of Santa Rosa County. We also have the sheriff from Grady Judge from Florida. And here's what Grady Judge says.
I would highly suggest that if a looter breaks into your home, comes into your home while you're there to steal stuff, that you take your gun and you shoot him. You shoot him so that he looks like grated cheese.
All right. And now let's go to East Hartford. And hopefully this will play. I had it all teed up. Hopefully we won't have to sit through I won't have to vamp while we go through and they typically precede these things with an ad. Oh, there is a 10-second ad here. I'm going to have to vamp through. All right, so we got 4 seconds to go, and here we go.
In East Hartford, a robbery victim shooting and killing one of the suspects after he was shot himself.
It happened last night at the Humble and Paidcom on Main Street. A second suspect still on the run. News 8's Eva Zamaris is live in East Hartford with the latest. Eva.
Good evening to the two of you. East Hartford police tell me they are treating this as a self-defense case. The store owner was also shot. He has non-life threatening injuries, and now police are trying to piece this all together. When Navdeep Singh arrived at his family's store, Bruno's Liquors, Friday morning,
came in, I saw the cops.
East Hartford police were at the business across the street, humble and paid company.
I know the guy, the owner, well. I was just really hoping anything didn't happen to him.
Around 10:30 Thursday night, East Hartford police say two men wearing ski masks entered the clothing store on Main Street with the intent of robbing it.
There was a brief struggle between the store owner and one of the suspects.
During that struggle, police say the owner was shot in the back and he returned fire with two of his legally registered guns, striking one of the suspects. The owner suffered non-life threatening injuries, while the suspect, who's now been identified as 26-year-old Jashar Haslam of Hartford, was pronounced dead at the hospital.
As of right now, it seems to be it's an isolated incident.
Meanwhile, the second suspect took off, and East Hartford police.
All right, and we're running out of time, but how many times has the thug's buddy stuck around to try to help his buddy?
Yep, I'm out of here, buddy.
Has that ever happened? Has the other guy said, "Oh, I'm wait, Frank, buddy, Bobby, here, I'll help you"? Has that ever happened even once?
I've never heard of one.
All right.
I challenge you to find one.
I've been doing these a long time, Producer Sue, and I've never yet. The second guy always flees and say, "Hey, nice knowing you. Goodbye. I'm gone." Anyway, we're running out of time. I want to thank everybody who listened for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on. Again, you can find a lot of the things I talked about. I tried to give you where you can go, Reason Magazine or Google Canadians coming to U.S. for medical care. I hope you found these if you want more information, if you want a link to any of these things, just email me at joe@jerzeejoe.com. And again, that's Jerzee, Jerzee, JerzeeJoe.com. And I'll be happy to send you a link to any of the material. If you want to read more about the urinal issue, or you want to read more about the Scottish wind turbines being powered by generators, send me email. I'll be happy to send you a story link to those. Anyway, that's all I've got. Producer Sue, do you have anything you want to add?
Or your trusted producer could put that stuff on their website for you.
And or my trusted producer can include some of those story links on the website. All right. With that, I'm done. I'll talk to you next week, Producer Sue. All right.
Enjoy the beautiful weather.
All right. You too, producer. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Whoop. Hang on.